Today, we are talking about a law in Malaysia that has completely rewritten the rulebook on corporate corruption. Honestly, if you run a business there or you're in management, this is something you just can't afford to ignore. It is a true game changer.
So for the longest time, the way people thought about corporate bribery was, well, pretty straightforward. But that old mindset, it's not just outdated anymore, it's actually dangerous. The entire legal landscape has shifted and pleading ignorance just won't cut it.
So let me ask you this. Picture one of your employees, or maybe even a third-party agent you hired, paying a little something extra to land a big contract. In the past, you might have thought, hey, that's on them, not me. But today, is your company really on the hook for their actions?
Well, under this new law, Section 17A of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act, the answer is a huge, unqualified yes. This law created a brand new offense of corporate liability. And what that means is your company can be found guilty of corruption even if you, the senior management, had absolutely no idea it was happening.
Okay, so to really grasp how powerful this law is, we need to break down a couple of key definitions. These two terms are what give the law its incredibly wide reach.
First up, what exactly is a commercial organization? You might think it's just for companies registered in Malaysia, but nope, it also covers any foreign company that is carrying on any part of its business in Malaysia. The net here is cast incredibly wide, pulling in both local and international players. And number two, who is an associated person? Now this is where the risk factor just explodes. The law basically defines this as anyone, whether it's one person or a whole other company, who performs services for you or acts on your behalf. It's an intentionally vague and broad term.
And just look at how broad we're talking. It's not just your regular employees. We're talking about directors, partners, outside agents, your own subsidiaries, and, this is the big one, any third-party contractors you hire. Suddenly, your company's risk profile extends way beyond your own payroll.
All right, now we're getting to the absolute core of Section 17A. And frankly, it's a bit of a shocker. It completely flips a basic principle of law on its head. For companies, it's basically a presumption of guilt.
This really says it all. You know, it used to be that prosecutors had the really tough job of proving that the top brass, the directing mind of the company, knew about the bribe. But now, the moment an associated person pays a bribe, your company is automatically considered liable. The burden of proof has completely flipped. It's now on you to prove you're innocent.
So let's trace the chain of events. An associated person commits a corrupt act. Right away, your company is deemed guilty of the very same crime. At that point, you have only one possible defense. Just one. You have to prove that you had adequate procedures in place to stop that kind of thing from ever happening. That is your only shield.
And if you think this is all just theory, stuff for lawyers to argue about, think again. This law is active, it's being enforced, and companies are already feeling the heat. Let's see how this is playing out in the real world.
This headline was the wake-up call. Pristine Offshore went down in history as the first company ever to be convicted under this new law. It sent a shockwave through the business community, and the message was loud and clear: the grace period is over.
And what was the price for that conviction? A fine of nearly 1 million ringgit. That number alone should make the financial risk of all of this crystal clear. But believe it or not, the potential penalties are actually a lot worse.
I mean, just look at what you could be facing. Fines that start at a minimum of 1 million ringgit, prison time up to 20 years for directors and people in management. And then there's the reputational damage, which can completely destroy a business, making it impossible to win contracts or keep the trust of your customers.
So after hearing about all these risks and scary penalties, the obvious question is, what can you do? How do you protect your company and yourself? Well, the law itself actually points to the answer, and it's all about being proactive, not reactive. And I know I've said it before, but it's worth repeating because it's the single most important takeaway from all of this. The one and only defense you have if your company gets charged under Section 17A is to prove that you already had adequate anti-corruption procedures in place before anything went wrong. So this really brings us to the final make or break question for every business leader out there. Are you just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, or are you actively building that shield? Because proving you have adequate procedures means real work, getting commitment from the top, doing risk assessments, putting in controls, and constant training. In this new reality, doing everything you can to prevent corruption isn't just good business practice, it's your only lifeline.